Okay, we're still working, or I'm still working on this grape growing doctor. So, the water doesn't look that good. Let's see. I tested out a few things here, and I went ahead and put some darks in. I made this post darker than in the original picture. I just thought it could use it. So let's see where to start. Well, we have this mixture. I hope you remember what's in it. It's in the first video. Oh, okay. So that looks like cerulean with probably some new gambage and Queen Coral to cut it back to a gray. And we've got his face shaded in quite a bit, but the beard area is not shaded in enough to go with it. So I've got a little round here. I think this is a 6. Can't tell. You know, we may have to do a little something extra up here. I already put in a few beard-looking strokes there. He has got hair growing way up onto his cheek. So let's do that. Let's take maybe a little bit of the gray, maybe a little bit weaker. And you can see where I've done this here. I'm just going to put in some strokes, kind of little crescent-shaped strokes that I think that's not quite dark enough. In fact, this whole area needs more shadow on it. See this whole, you can see where there's a highlight right here. And then this area is shadowed more. I don't have an overall shadow in there that's adequate. I think we're going to have to mix more of this up. Well, I'll take a little bit of this red, because that's probably coral and new gambage right there, something close to it. And let's take some cerulean. Oh, it's a little bit too blue. Let's just get a touch more of this. And just a tiny bit more. There we go. So there we got a nice gray. I think that's close. Let's thin part of it down. Let's see, this whole area, and here's the thing, under the neck too. Let's just use the gray, because it's the same gray I'm using in the beard area. I wouldn't like switch colors there, probably. So I'm looking at the shape of this highlight right here. That's my guard poodle. It looks a little blue. Looks a little too blue. Oh yeah, as it's drying it looks way too blue. I thought it was fine when I started putting it down. Okay, we're going to leave that, because there's more than one way to, oh, I hate that expression, skin a cat. A little bit more of the gray right in under here. You know, I'm just going to put more of that over here. There's a spot there that looks strangely light. Let's leave it like that for right now. Now, we were going to do some of our shading up here under this hat with this same gray. That's what I had originally mixed it for. And I think I'm just going to go ahead. Okay. I like leaving that little crisp edge there. I just think it makes a better looking piece. Even as I say that, let's see, I think that this needs to shadow too right here. Well, I'm just continuing to shadow here. I was going to do this with a totally different mixture, and now I have changed my mind. Yeah, it's not too bad. I think it needs something more, but we need to let that dry. So all this business up here on the hat, I don't know. I would say kind of do what you see there. I don't have like some special technique for imitating it other than to look at what's there and imitate it. So I can see some little dark things. They're kind of radiating this way. And then, oops, we come down a ways. There's some little white things. There's a little bit of a shadow near them. So we might put that little bit of shadow. I'll tell you what, let's put some white in there. So I've got my white ink. Because quite frankly, I think I'm going to have to use a little white right there. So I've got my white ink, and it is mixed kind of thin. It's not pasty anyway. I might actually would prefer it to be pasty for this. There's some on the side. That might be a little thicker. I'm going to kind of glop it up here so that as it dries, because as it dries, it'll get lighter. There's some more of these things. Oh, you know what? I had put masking on here at one time. I forgot it was there. And then realized that I needed to buy new masking fluid. When your masking starts to kind of clabber up, and clabber up might be the right word, sort of like buttermilk, you know, when it's got kind of gets little chunkies in it or whatever, it's time to throw it away. Because what I did was, mine was kind of chunked up like that. And what I did was, I went ahead and just poured off the thinner masking and tried to use that. And it was just still terrible stuff. So your masking will age. I suggest, unless you are doing large areas of masking, that you buy small bottles. There's some strange highlighted things there that I don't even know what's causing that. This hat has looks like, oh yeah, actually, because I didn't do this, I didn't even see it. Can you see right through there? That's a hole in the hat. This hat has seen much better days. So I fixed up his hat, let's face it, because that's his forehead. This hat is coming apart. That's why it looks the way it does. Well, Let's see, I'm putting little things on here, and I want pretty concentrated paint, but I want it to flow off the brush. I don't want to try to dry brush this on here. I don't know what all this is. There's where a chunk of the hat must be coming out. You know, I think I drew my lines in here backwards from what I'm seeing in the picture now. But I'm going to go with what I've got drawn. So, I wouldn't do a bunch of long lines here, though. You know, I would break these lines up into little chunks. You could do a little pattern like that, you know. You can do stuff here. This needs a lot more care. And I think one of the things is there's way too much contrast. You see how much darker this is? And the perfect color for this is raw sienna. And by raw sienna, well, I've got Daniel Smith's raw sienna. But what I'm talking about when I talk about raw sienna is real raw sienna, not where someone has made up, that's a little too bright. Okay, so we need raw sienna with something else in it. Okay, there's raw sienna. We'll take, Sophie, that was me making that noise. Shh, 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 shh. Let's take a little bit of, here's some permanent brown, some kind of red, some kind of natural looking red. Oh, I think that might do it. I need more of it though. Sophie, be quiet, please. There, that looks real close to this, but this is on top of something else. Still looks a little bright. So, if I do stuff in here, I want to leave some highlight areas of this base color still showing through. And I will admit that I am not excited about painting this hat. Yeah, that'll work though, actually. I'll do just a tiny bit more of it. So out here it gets lighter. And then in here it gets way darker, but which I'm going to make that darker hat, but actually that's his head showing through there. Yeah, I never noticed that. So we need a little bit of shadow in under here too. You know, and we've got, that's going to make something of a hat texture. And this crops up here. I think there's a little bit showing right over here. But we're cropping this off right through here. So, okay, we've got that. Now, I don't think this was too blue after all once it dried. Because it was just, it's not near as bright once it dries. We need still some stronger darks in his face. And I'm still going to stick with doing kind of a two-step thing here. So, I don't know what I want to use. You know, let's take a look at the coral again. Here's some coral. So when I order paint, I always order an extra tube of Quin Gold because it's not the strongest pigment in the world and I use a lot of it. So I order Quin Gold and I order extra, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think and talk about something different. No, that doesn't work. I order extra Quin Gold and extra, every now and then I get an extra tube of Quin Coral. Because I just use that so darn much. It's just sort of my, well, if I was a computer person, I guess I'd call it a default color. It's, when in doubt, just go for the coral. I think that that's going to be a little too weak. Let's put a little bit of this Quinburnt Scarlet into it. But I wanted it kind of to have some brightness because I'm going to come back on top of it with, well, with my surprise colors. I'll show you in a few minutes. So let's get right here. This whole area is a little darker as it comes down into the mustache. Well, that looks ridiculous, doesn't it? I'll soften it a little bit. And there's actually kind of a line here. Right here under the bottom part of the nose, right there. That little spot is worth shaping correctly. That is, if you're doing a portrait. Okay, I think I'm going to go for the Quinburnt Scarlet here because I want to get in darker here around the mouth, or that is inside the mouth. I think I don't have that shape quite right. There. That's not too bad. So, well, this area right here needs more color in it. That is, it needs more depth. And we're going to get more depth by adding more color. Well, that looks flaky, doesn't it? You know, sometimes I do things that look scary. Sometimes I scare myself. And sometimes I just get impatient and I screw up. I think that's going to work out eventually. Well, this area here, that's more color than I want there. Okay, that'll do. So let's get a little bit more color down here too. Remember, this is not what I'm going to finish with. This is a step towards going where I want to go. I might need to define the edge of that. I don't know, that beard, here's shadow, and there's still beard down here, and I don't know what's going on there quite. Alrighty. Maybe just a little more color right here and a little more red into this part of the beard because there's a lot of skin showing through here too. It's sort of just a merging of several colors right there. Okay, so I think what we have to do with this is dry it. Before I do, I'm going to skip over here. I'm going to work on the grapes just a hair. This is actually getting close to done. It may look weird, but it's getting close to done. And as it dries, it's also going to go duller, and I need to see how dull it's going to get. Alrighty, so what I did with these grapes, ooh, come back, grapes. You know what, I have to dry this first. How much of that have I been painting off camera, I wonder. Alright, so you can see I've got little highlights on here. I've got a few like little shadow areas painted in between some places. I want to do as little on this as I can. But what you can do, I wouldn't define every grape, but I might suggest a highlight that's on the grape. I think it'd be okay if some of these highlights were pretty soft edged. I just wanted to make that a little softer right there. I don't know why I've got that stem that color. So all I'm doing is I'm just showing a few highlights, and once you come away from that edge, the highlights are pretty weak, but just a tiny gentle bit of brushing here and there. And like I said, I'm not about to do every one of these grapes. I can do a little bit down here. Well, that's pretty dark. You really don't need to even lift. That might be enough of that. So the other thing is to come in and mix your grape color. Remember what your grape color was? I think we used, I don't remember. I think we used Queen Rose. And ultramarine, which makes the same identical thing that Daniel Smith sells as Imperial Purple. Why go out and buy Imperial Purple when you can just mix it up right here so easily and adjust it to exactly the color you want it to be. There. All right, now what I'm going to do this time, the lazy way out, I'm just going to throw in a little black. There. There's a little black in that. then I'll put in a few bits of shadow in this other area. And the thing is, we're just going to soften the edges on that. I just keep it really soft and just suggesting a little bit of shadows. And it should, and I'll emphasize the word should, make grapes. See that? And then we just see, so you got a little bit of that kind of thing going on. I would even pump a little extra to make it interesting without overworking it. I might just pump a little extra reds right here in the middle. So I haven't done the whole thing, obviously, and I would probably do more than what I've done there, but you get the general idea. It's pretty easy, actually. The thing is not to overly define the grapes. It just ruins the whole look if you do that. All right. Back to the face. So now we have these reds, and I'm assuming he looks a little too red. He sure looks too red over here. I tell you what, let's look at this area first. So look how red these hands are, and how, I mean, that's so red, it's just perverse. Let's try a little more red. I think I need more of a shadow right here. And you're thinking, that is, some people that aren't familiar with what I do are thinking, oh shit, that's what they're thinking. Yeah, this is awful. Okay, but it's really not too awful. Okay, now I got to dry that. Well, it's time to regroup because I set him up on the easel after I dried him and looked at him from a distance. And this cheek just looks too big and puffy. It just, I wanted some lights here. I think it's too light, but I also think that I need to break a darker value right across here. So that means 2 layers. So let's go back to that coral and mix it with the new gamboge. This part can be really fun, or it can really drive you nuts. Nope, I think I want to do that. Well, I've got almost no highlight left. Well, you know, I guess that's life. Give him a little bit more color right there on the lips, too. I think this still looks wrong. I think I want a little bit more of that gray shadow. You see how those colors separate? The reds separate from from the blue, so you have to remix it. I want to give him a little more shape. Yeah, that's better. It's not quite like the picture. It's a little more drastic, but I think that's better. So now I've got to dry this cheek all over again. Well, I did more stuff, and I didn't have the camera on. But the dogs were barking anyway. Okay, so what I did was I just glitched up the eye a little bit more, and you can see the little bit of lash going here. I had put a little bit more grays here on the cheek and under the eye. Oh, and I put a little bit of white in right here. And now I think it's a little too strong. Stands out a little more than I wanted. So I'm just going to dampen it. I don't really want to stroke it around because it'll smear around and make kind of a dull, pasty looking area. And I'll wet it and blot it there. And that's probably about right. It might go just a tiny bit darker as it dries. So I glitched up the eyes a little bit, and I put in more brown here on the glasses and down here. So you see a little bit more shape. This spot right here, that's a problem. That's way too dark. See right here on the picture how it's lighter here? That's another thing that's adding to that puffy cheek look. Let's just take a lifting brush here. This is where I put some beard hair in, but I shouldn't have put dark beard hair, but I shouldn't have put it in there. I could put some white in there, but I'm not going to just try to cover the dark up with white. That doesn't always work so well. When I do this, I'm just barely touching the paper. I'm just barely doing anything to it. That's better. I tell you what, let's try just a little bit of white. But see, I'm not trying to cover the other up. I lifted it first. Let's add a little bit of white. Now, this is really wet. And he's got a little tuft right there, too. This is really wet, and as it dries, it's going to dry considerably darker than what you see there, and duller. You know, I might just... one should be careful not to get too excited here and put in too many, like, little thingies. Much better not to get carried away. However, we could come in and we could actually add a little bit more white right in here. Now, if I'm adding whites in this area and I want them to stand out as whites, here I want it to kind of blend in. If I want it to stand out more, this needs to be fairly strong. Do what? Let's just open up the bottle. See, I'm raking that off, though. I just thought I might do. He's got a little light spot right up here. You know, you could play with that beard a little bit and have a little bit of fun there. And as it dries, it's going to dull up some. And so at that point, you can see whether you want to go back over it or not. Or go back over parts of it. Oh, this part's fun. He's got a little bit more right over here too. Now don't make all these lines parallel to each other, but you do want to kind of do it, put them in the direction that his hair is growing, obviously. Okay, now that's the grape growing doctor right there, more or less. Bye now. Happy painting.